Hello and welcome back to Educator.com AP World History. We're discussing period 6, which is 1900 to the present. And this session is about political changes were accompanied by major demographic and social consequences. So you should think, what political changes might we be talking about 1900 to the present? What major political changes are going to take place in that period? Well, if you're thinking about communism becomes a new way of organizing government and a new political system, and what's going to happen because of it as it moves around from place to place and is adopted or is opposed and so forth. That's one thing. And we should then connect that a political change is going to lead to demographic and social changes. Remember the demographic? It's a good word that you need to have in your toolbox for AP World. Demographic refers to the statistics that we keep on people. You know, where do they live? What are their ages, religion? What's the growth rate? You know, all of these statistics that we keep on people. Well, one of the things that's important here is that we're going to see colonial boundaries change. Colonial boundaries. So before we get to that, let's talk about boundaries. And when we talk about boundaries in history, we're usually thinking about nation states. So how are boundaries determined? I don't know about you, but before I thought about this sort of thing when I was younger, it just seems like it's something that's there, not something that developed. But that's not true. One of the major components is going to be war. When one group of people goes to war against another, it's many times fighting over a piece of territory that's valuable, one or the other side may be able to take that, and that may make the other side get together and come back. And maybe at some point in time, people get tired of that, and they just draw a boundary, and it sticks. What I'm trying to convey is that boundaries are something that are developed out of conflict, and that they're not something that's just there. Now, the next thing is, if we're going to talk about colonial boundaries, is what about decolonization? We know that in this period of time, 1900 to present time, especially in that in the middle of the 20th century, we see decolonization, where colonies get their independence, and we see colonies disappearing like crazy, to the place where if I ask you, name a colony, you may be able to do it, but you'd have to stretch it, and you couldn't point out large areas of the world being colonies, as was the case certainly before 1900. All right? So my question again is, why does it take place? And we did discuss this once before, that colonies, the making of colonies, has a seed of destruction already in it. It may start out well, but there is going to become conflict between the colonists, or the people in the colony, and the mother country. And those are just going to bubble up, and there's going to be independence movements. But there's some other reasons, right? What intellectual reasons? what ideas might throw seeds into the anti-colonial movement? I hope that you came up with the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment, of course, was an 18th century phenomenon and moved into the 19th century. But the point being here that that wasn't, decolonization didn't take place right then. It's how these ideas formed up and moved into different spheres that the Enlightenment thinkers, for the most part, weren't promoting. But the idea that all men are created equal, that the people have rights, is going to be anti-colonial.